Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for Stars of France. I'm so excited to have you all with us this evening. And we've got an incredible lineup of wines for us to taste and a great audience that's joining us from all over the place. Looking around the screen, seeing some familiar names. I want to welcome you all back. It's been good to see some of you join us from long ago. Some of our regulars, some new folks. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Mary Grace. Hi, Annette. Good to see you. Thank you so much. Peter Work, good to see you again, sir. Josh Boxer. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for being here. Hey, Scott Bigelow. Thomas, thank you for joining us with your group there. Melvin J, always good to see you. Lisa Test, Gary Gokul. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing well, thanks.
Excellent. Melissa, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Ian. Hi, everyone.
Hey, hey. Mary Pat, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. Are you amazing racing right now?
No, thank God.
Is it coming back?
Yeah, we just finished one.
Okay.
We just finished filming, so it'll come on next year.
All right. Very, very nice. Nadia, good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Hi, Lori Myers.
Hi, Ian. It's nice to see you and nice to see everyone. I see some familiar names as well. It's been a while. I'm here with Bill Dunlap, and we're very excited to be here tonight.
Fantastic. Catherine, thanks for joining us with your group in the house.
Hi. We're pretty excited about it.
All right. Let's get started.
I was like, don't zoom us in.
You know, you guys are all part of the experience here. We're not broadcasting for some one-dimensional viewing, although if you're missing the broadcast tonight, maybe you'll be watching this on a video, but tasting with us, you're tasting live. We're bringing you in to the tasting like we're all in a classroom type of setting together. We've got a lot of experts on the Zoom with us tonight. So I just want to get started and get rolling and get some wine in the glass and welcome you all. Thank you. Let me get my slideshow open to tell me what I'm supposed to say next.
I'm going to mute us.
Huh? You muted.
I haven't muted you yet, but I will. All right.
There's just background chatter, so I wanted to save you, so I'll just mute us.
That's cool. That's cool. Cool. Let's see. I'm going to get rid of my background, my virtual background. We selected wines this time from, obviously we're tasting France together, and we're going to do kind of a greatest hits approach using some really fantastic wines. You know, there's different price point levels that wines can achieve, and I really think dollar for dollar, this is just a rock solid lineup. We're going to start with Alphonse Malot, a fantastic producer, really important producer, tasting Sancerre. That'll be wine number one. Hopefully everybody got the email that allows you to print out a little tasting mat if you wanted to print that out. There's also a little brochure in there talking about each of the wines and the order and who's presenting, etc. We're going to go then to Bouchard Perifee, and we're going to taste a fantastic red Burgundy, which of course is made from Pinot Noir. And then we're going to go to the Rhone and taste with Pierre Gaillard, and we're going to taste a great Northern Rhone Syrah. We'll head over to Loire Valley for some Cabernet Franc, and then we'll finish in Bordeaux with two wines, one from Pauillac, from the house of Chateau Grand Puy-Lacasse, and a wine from Rio Sec called Les Camps de Rio Sec, a Sauterne. And so we've got a lot of experts here to go through it, but let's begin with wine number one and get into our video. We actually have a lot of live guests tonight, but our first guest was traveling. And so we will listen to the ambassador, Christophe Bonjour, representing La Mousserie, the wine from Alphonse Merlot, and here it comes.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, Christopher. Good evening to you. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
I'm
Always a pleasure.
always excited to see you. We really have enjoyed our relationship with Alphonse Merlot, and you are the importer. And how long have you been importing the brand?
So, actually, the brand ambassador of Alphonse Merlot,
Okay.
Monterey Bay Wine Company in California is my actual importer for the state of California.
I see.
I've got other wholesalers that import directly. I'm the brand ambassador nationally. And I've been doing this now since 2012 with Alphonse. And we became very, very close friends. So
That's
and
great.
every year it's getting better and better.
Well, the wine is beautiful. I've loved not only the style, but the consistency of the brand.
Yeah.
And I think it's really taking some serious share. And I really enjoy the wine. And I think it's our largest holding in Sancerre. And we really think that the brand has a long runway ahead of it.
Well, we've become the #1 Sancerre producer in quality really being sold in the US. We did more than 10 containers last year of Alphonse Merlot Sancerre, biggest market being New York and New England and California right after that. And he has an extensive portfolio of whites and reds, and obviously La Moussière, which is our main item today, is the benchmark for Alphonse Merlot. That represents about 70–75% of what we sell and export to the US market and to the rest of the world. The vineyard of La Moussière is within Sancerre, right in Sancerre. It's been the family for a very, very, very long time. This is the vineyard of La Moussière. So La Moussière doesn't mean anything in French, really. Just an old name. La Moussière, we make white, red, and we have 4 hectares of Pinot Noir that we dedicated just to make rosé. But the main one is the La Moussière white, which now we are at about 28 hectares. And La Moussière has been in the family since 1513. We actually have paperwork going back to the Middle Ages showing the wines being shipped to Paris and to the nobles and the kings, and later on export to England, which was our first biggest export market. And the benchmark was La Moussière. Going back a little bit of history, Alphonse Merlot, that is making the wine now, Alphonse Merlot Jr., if you want, he's 53-year-old. He's been making the wine since, for now, 26, 27 years. And he's taking Alphonse Merlot to another level. White and reds. Obviously, the whites are phenomenal, and Sancerre is known, but his dad had told him, you can't make any reds in Sancerre. We don't have that quality. And of course, your dad tells you that, you go the other direction. And he makes incredible reds that I hope once in a while we'll be tasting all you together. 19th generation, since 1513, all the winemakers and owners, because Alphonse Merlot is the owner, and since 1513, all the owners have been called Alphonse Merlot. This is Alphonse Merlot Jr. at the right, and the dad, the senior, on the left. Both crazy men. Alphonse Jr. loves speed. He's got tons of cars. When he does make wine, he builds motorcycles from scratch, Harley Davidson. And the dad was the European champion of biplane, World War I European champ, acrobatic biplane. Just crazy people. La Moussière, as I said, is the most important wine at the winery, the benchmark. It's 100% obviously Sauvignon Blanc. There are two grapes in Sancerre, Sauvignon Blanc for the whites, Pinot Noir for red and rosé, obviously. But in general, when it comes to La Moussière, we use vats, wooden vats, big rectangular wooden vats that are neutral oak, so it gives richness to the wine, but you really do not taste the oak on those wines. And Generation 19 is taking to another level. You've got a little bit of the wooden vats, and then a little bit as well of like smaller barrels, a little longer. On La Moussière is 12 months. On Generation 19, depending on the vintage, 18 to 22 months. Like I said, vines are 65 to 60 or 7-year-old vines here. And when you taste the wine, it's just the number one thing from La Moussière to all the different wines that he makes in white and red. You only get your best definition is precision, purity, and balance. Incredibly balanced wine. And again, because of La Moussière and those vineyards, the soil is so unique here, and the way Alphonse works the wines, the wines are made for aging.
Christophe, when you talk about Sancerre, of course, we're talking Sauvignon Blanc. Here, I picked this wine because it is elevated in quality. I believe their use of wood helps add a layer, a dimension, a richness.
Yes.
Other Sancerres fail to achieve. It is a little bit more modern in its thought process, but it's not so moderned out that it loses its typicity. It's got fantastic Sauvignon Blanc.
Incredible balance with the wood and the food. And then you really, the
And the
food gives you a
floral.
little bit of weight and the richness, but that's it.
The white flowers, that diversity of soil, you get that kind of that saltiness, you get that lemon peel, you get some really amazing nuances. Is there
The
any?
other thing too that is important to remember, Ian, is we are talking about the 2020 vintage, which is a bigger. So when you taste, for example, the 21 vintage, we still have a little bit of the 21 vintage, and I think our wholesaler has in California, which is more of like a linear vintage, a little so cooler climate. 2020 was beautiful weather, rich in summer, so you have a much more of a blockbuster wine and a richer wine.
Well, there's definitely a consistency amongst the radical differences in the vintage, because the vine age, reactions of the winemaker, and I think this is a brand to know about, a brand to watch, and there's a lot of history. So
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you being here today and sharing your passion for the brand. As always, Christophe, thank you.
Thank you so much, and enjoy your evening. Have a great time.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you next time.
See you. Bye.
Cheers. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the wine. Any comments? There is a chat feature that I couldn't access because I was sharing my screen. But there, if you want to chat any tasting notes, I'd love to correspond with you guys and get some ideas on the chat box while we taste with these guys. And the rest of the wines are all represented by people that are live on the Zoom with us tonight, so they can answer questions going on. And if you're a producer and you're sitting watching and you want to comment or you want to engage, we encourage all of that. So this first wine, like we talked about, it has this beautiful aromatic nose that's so much like a perfume, and really draws you in. There's a broadness and a richness that does kind of come off a little bit more modern than some producers, which really kind of count on a little bit more austerity. And this wine just has a more generous, rounder, almost creaminess to it, but it's not like a Chardonnay at all. It's just got kind of a palate richness that's pretty special. And those are typically known as quality marks. They can go a little too far and kind of take you away from Sancerre, but here I think he does it really nicely with really daft details. The wine is very fairly priced. It's a beautiful package too, by the way. The bottles, just gorgeous to be able to present. And This is a brand to really kind of watch, like I said, because the Milo family has very important land holdings. They're big time landlords also, by the way. They own a lot of homes and apartment buildings and stuff like that there. So they're really entrenched and they're very sincere. And Alphonse, the current Alphonse is an actual licensed Harley Davidson mechanic. So if your motorcycle breaks down in France, he's the guy to know. All right, moving on. I do see some chats now. There they are. Nice balance. Love this. Lovely. Good, good, good. All right, let's engage the next wine number 2. And we're going to quickly move right into reds. We'll finish with another white at the end, a sweet white. But until then, we're going to taste some great Burgundy. And Rebecca's here to join us from Bouchard Perry-Fee, part of the Henriot collection. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's wonderful to be with all of you this evening. So just as Ian mentioned, so I'm Rebecca. I've had the opportunity, the real honor to work directly for the Henriot family since the inception of the U.S. subsidiary. So over 17 years now.
Wow.
The Henriot family collection of wines includes Champagne Henriot, which I know we've shared with some of you before, Bouchard Perry-Fee, William Febvre, and Beaufrère in Oregon. But tonight is all about a little Burgundy with Bouchard Perry-Fee. So Bouchard is a iconic estate in Burgundy. So you'll find there's going to be a lot of similarities as we go through here tonight in the sense of history, generational things. So this is an estate that was established in 1731 by Michel Bouchard. So we're talking about over 300 years of expertise of growing Chardonnay and Pinot Noir in Burgundy, right? So this right here, that's a great picture. This actually is the estate. The estate is actually called Chateau de Beaune, and then we're going to taste Beaune de Chateau tonight. So when the estate was first established in 1731 by Michel Bouchard, the first collections of vineyards actually began in 1775. And that was the first vineyard purchased by the Bouchard family was Volnay and Volnay-Carrère. So, and then in 1820, Bernard Bouchard purchased this estate, which we were just looking at, which is called Chateau de Beaune. This is actually a 15th century fortress that was built by the King of France, Louis XI. And then since 1820, it's been within the family holdings. And it certainly, I'm not sure if everyone's had a chance to visit Burgundy or not, but Chateau de Beaune certainly is like the heart and soul of Beaune and encompasses that. So it's an ancient fortress, and then we age in our cellars there as well. So, and then in 1995, the Bouchard family passed the baton to the Henriot family. So that's when that saying, so we're still been family generation. And then today we're 9 generations in, being led by Gilles de la Rousier Henriot. So the estate is actually quite extraordinary in the sense that we are actually the largest landowner of Premier and Grand Cru in the Côte d'Or. So when you think about in Burgundy that less than 2% of Grand Cru is produced in Burgundy and less than 10% Premier Cru, Bouchard Perry-Fee's 2/3 of our vineyard holdings are Premier and Grand Cru. So that's really where we live and breathe, is at that top level. And tonight is a wonderful example of a wine that we'll taste. That's actually a flagship wine for us. It's one we've produced actually since 1907. What Ian has up on the map or up on this screen right now is a map here, and this actually shows the parcels that the particular wines come through. Because what Beaune de Chateau is, one thing I should mention too about the estate is that with Bouchard, we are very committed to sustainability as well. We were the first in the region to be HVE3 certified, which is the highest certification you can get for sustainability in France. And in the year 2024, will be entirely organic at both Bouchard-Père-Fils and William Febvre. But the map that's up now is actually a map of the parcels that go into, we produce 2 flagship wines called Beaune de Chateau. We're tasting the red tonight, which is actually a blending of Beaune. So it's unique in the sense that as opposed to sourcing from one particular spot and showcasing that, we actually take 17 different parcels, all Premier Cru, so that higher quality level, all domain, we vinify them separately and then blend together to create a compilation of Beaune called Beaune de Chateau. So it's a wine that's actually exclusive to the House of Bouchard. So there is not another Burgundy producer that produces this wine. We're the only ones to produce Beaune de Chateau Blanc and Beaune de Chateau Rouge. So
Rebecca, can I tell you right now?
sure.
I poured this wine, you know, we break out the kits on Monday and we fill them all the way to the top. And we then send them out for tasting. And this wine, you know, on opening, it's a 2018 Burgundy, which this wine has such a long runway.
Right.
But this decantation process that we take this through is so optimal. It's really showing so great right now. And if you're sitting at home and you're maybe not enjoying this, I'm just telling you from a Burgundy fan's perspective, this wine is off the chain, just so delicious tonight.
It's delicious. It's honestly one of Joseph and I's house wines. We love it ourselves because it's just shows so beautifully. And as you said, it has a couple years of age on it, but not much. It's from the 18 vintage. So it's still a baby, but has the ability to age much longer as well. And then we also have a guest appearance from our cellar master, Frederick Weber. He's actually been with us on property for over 20 years. He's been the cellar master actually just for 10, because as you can imagine, when we're dealing with estates like this that have such history and tradition, it's really important that the tribal knowledge gets passed down generation to generation, winemaker to winemaker. So Frederick was appointed to be the next cellar master when he first came to us at Bouchard over 20 years ago. However, he had to work side by side with who is now our emeritus cellar master for 10 years before the baton was officially passed, so that he could really understand all the nuances of every single terroir. Because just as I mentioned, you know, we have quite an extensive vineyard holdings within Burgundy and produce several different wines. But just because we're producing several different wines, it's a very much a very specific terroir plot by plot approach with each of those wines. And again, where we really live and breathe is in that Premier and Grand Cru level to showcase the extraordinary terroir of Burgundy. So Frederick is, so that's quite something, because I wouldn't say
that's amazing.
It's something, you know, it is quite something, because the average estate holding in Burgundy, so we have it converts to 130 hectares basically. So the average estate holding is about just under 8 roughly as a point of comparison. So, you know, the Henriot family has been blessed, the Bouchard family, the Henriot family has been blessed with a pretty extraordinary expression of Burgundy, where we have the ability to do that. So this is Frederick, and he'll talk to us a little bit about the 18 vintage, which is what we're drinking tonight.
2018, it is a very hot year. If you analyze this vintage, we had 300 hours of sun more than a normal year, plus 2 degrees, 60% less of rain. It was really stressful in the vineyard. It's a really hot vintage, perhaps close to 05, 09. It was also a generous vintage. We observe a lot of grapes in the vineyards. And that's why I think it was really important to choose to organize a green harvest, to eliminate some grapes, to decrease the yield, and to have a better expression of the terroir. And the other thing is to do not eliminate the leaf, to keep it, to have a protection against the sun, and to have a good maturity, but not an over maturity. And after that, we started the harvest at the end of August. Fortunately, one more time, we will just have a rain just before the harvest, and that's permit to have a very well balanced vintage. And you will see 18 will be the vintage for a long aging potential. It's for the future, as 05 or 09. It's one of the greatest year for the 20 last year.
Yeah, that's what all the reports have been saying, is that 18 is definitely a vintage to take stock on. And every vintage can be a little bit different. There's been no shortage of warm vintages, but even within a warm vintage, you can have some great quality, and the 18 really played into that hand. 20 is another big warm vintage, but 21 is a cold vintage and a very different vintage because of a lot of rain and a lot of different issues. So the wine styles can vary a little bit here.
And the 18 vintage is actually the warmest vintage on record until the 20 in Burgundy. Wow. And so, but it was a more fulsome vintage, where right now we're dealing with multiple short back-to-back vintages in Burgundy, where 18 was a bit more of a fulsome vintage, relatively speaking. But that's, to Frederick's point earlier, is why he had to, cut grapes early on and drop, so that the quality level, so the yields were lower and the quality level was higher. And then also to make sure that the grapes were protected by keeping the leaves on the vines and things of that nature. So, but it's a lovely wine. And I know someone had asked the question of if this wine is 100% bone. Yes, it is. This particular wine that we're tasting tonight is really an embodiment of showing, some Premier Cru, 17 different parcels from bone. So it's a blending of bone, but exclusively bone in this wine.
Here we look at the vineyard and the exposition, that soft, slow, gradual slope. And this is one of the things that I love most about Burgundy, is just that beautiful, smell and sense of place that you can get standing there looking at the hills. And here's a look at the wine detail of the wine that we have in the glass and the bottle and the way it looks. I'm holding the bottle here in the office, and it's a really great find. And I will say, this is one of the greatest values I've found in Burgundy, and you can't often put those two words together at the same time. But to be able to offer this wine at the price that we have it is really pretty special. You're looking at, comparing it to a pretty nice bottle of Oregon Pinot or Santa Barbara Pinot that has an appellation of Willamette or Santa Barbara. So this is really a fantastic value.
You bring up an excellent point, and I think that's an important one to make, because as I mentioned, this is a flagship wine for us, the Beaune de Chateau Blanc and Rouge. And as a result of it, the way we see this wine is it becomes a great segue into our collection of Pinot Noirs. And so this is the one wine on the Premier Cru level that, to Ian's point, because of what we've done working together, it provides a great quality to value ratio. Everything else does, but I can certainly assure you that everything else we produce is at a much higher level. We make sure that this wine is at an approachable point, because we want to make sure that people have the opportunity to segue into Burgundy because of all the treasures that Burgundy gives us, right?
Yes. And it's a great ambassador.
Certainly.
People are going to taste this. Maybe it's their first Burgundy. And this is the type of experience that you want people to have when they're tasting something for the first time. It's generous, but it's not so flashy that it loses its importance and quality marks and stuff like that. And And this producer is just some producer that you really need to appreciate for just how important they are to Burgundy. Rebecca, Bone is one of my favorite places on the planet.
I know, right? It's so charming.
And that house sits right on the protective infrastructural fence that surrounds all of Bone, and it is such an iconic property. And so then Bone is kind of an appellation in itself that's slightly underappreciated, because this wine certainly has the gusto to age like a champion. I do think that this 18 is something you can enjoy right now and not feel guilty opening, but like 2 or 3 more years, and it's going to take on totally another gear. And I think that this wine could age 20 years, but 2 or 3 more years just really continue to develop in a very fast rate. And and I'm going to say one more bold thing, that I think this may be the last time you can find a wine at this quality point at this price point. I know that this wine, I got a very good deal.
Right.
Put it on our website. I don't think you're going to find Premier Cru from a brand of this caliber at this price point for, in future years. This is absolutely, $20-$30 a bottle light of its potential. And also what its competition is already charging. I'm every day I'm getting offers from people that want me to think about their Premier Crus at $105, $110 wholesale, and Grand Crus north of $200, $300, $400. One wine I've been buying for years, it's a Grand Cru. I used to buy 3, then I went 4, it's then 5. It's $700 a bottle wholesale, and it just keeps flying up north, because these properties are small, and people think about collectible wine. Burgundy really is the ultimate collectible wine because of how small these plots are, and there's just no more Burgundy to plant. And if you want something that's special, these are small producers. And even though the wine that we're tasting, they're a significant landholder, this still isn't a massive production. This is still, for the world, a teeny fraction of what they would make in a big vintage of Bordeaux.
Certainly. And the one thing too, to Ian's point, exactly, so the 18 vintage that we're tasting tonight is indeed the current vintage, because we look to bring, a chunk of that to the US. However, we're dealing with 3 short back-to-back vintages in Burgundy. 19 was a very short vintage. 20, we're about to release in Q1 of next year, was also short vintage. And 21, which we won't release until the year 2024, is half of what the production was, half of what the 19 vintage was. And so to his point, exactly, what's going to happen over the next couple of years, because we were fortunate this year in the sense of because of the vineyard holdings that the Henriot family has at Bouchon, William Febvre, we were able to bring some wine out of the cellars to make sure we had wine in the US, because we're dealing with such short vintages that not everyone has that same luxury that we've been able to do that. But we're dealing with very short, multiple back-to-back vintages. So everything will continue to be harder to find, and to Ian's point, a bit more expensive as well because of the scarcity of Burgundy.
And then the Burgundy producers are all walking around with a smile on their face now, because 2022 came in pretty. Yeah, it's going to be a great vintage, 2022, which refills the coffers. But yeah, there was one vintage after another. It was pretty light. Well, I'm so happy to be able to taste this wine with you tonight, Rebecca. Thank you so much for your time. Does anybody have any questions about this Burgundy?
Yeah, there was one I saw come up about stem inclusion, so I'll just answer that quickly. So Frederick, our cellar master, just so you know, he doesn't have any kind of set philosophy. He looks at, regarding stem inclusion, he looks at each particular vintage and each particular wine. So that will vary from not only vintage to vintage, but also from parcel to parcel of what he did. On the 18 vintage, it was very little stem inclusion. I don't have the exact percentage, but I can always circle back with Ian on that. I was going to say I could could text Frederick now, but I think it's a little early in the morning for him to get his exact percentage of that time, but it's very minimal on the 18 vintage.
And to clarify, someone said it's not actually 100% cote de bone, it's 100% of bone, and it's all Premier
Cru, yeah.
So in the region of Bone, there are vineyards that are designated Premier Cru. So it's all that goes in here is just the Premier Cru holdings, which they are significant in what they own. But it's just from Bone and not a Cote de Bone wine. It's not a larger region. So this is really special and a great price point, a great value, great vintage. 2018 is exciting, and it's a wine to appreciate. And Rebecca, we really thank you for all that wonderful detail.
So happy to be here with you guys tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ian, would you just mind doing the same kind of description of this one in your personal style that you did for the Sancerre?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
More wine, though.
Good idea. Always a good idea.
So, first, when you look at Pinot Noir, you see how light that color is because this grape has a thin skin and it grows in a cooler place. So you swirl it around, you can really appreciate that softness and color. You don't want to try to make it dark. When you smell this wine, you get this amazing floral and brown spice nose, and it ranges from like mushrooms to brown spices and clove. Christmas cookie spices kind of is what I've often kind of leaned into a little bit. Like you even kind of get like a maple, some cloves, some really interesting things. And then the fruit component kind of ranges from cranberry to dark cherry, and then that mushroomy kind of savory thing is always guiding this wine. There's nothing sweet about this wine. It's super savory, just an amazing food application. I'd love to have this with, whether it's game or lamb or beef bourguignon or a number of other classic French dishes. But you could also cross it over into other parts of the world and have it with Indian food and some, I like it with chicken as well, especially if you're going to have a lot of mushrooms.
I think it's delicious, Ian, and it just shows that we can still learn a lot from Burgundy.
And that's coming from a Pinot Noir producer in Santa Rita Hills, Peter Work.
Oh, great. There you go. I was going to say we're not in Russian River right now when we're drinking this wine.
Right. Certainly not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, love it. Thank you.
Good nose.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate you, Rebecca. Thanks so much. And I will take the pressure off now. And we are going to move now into our next wine, which sends us back to the Rhone. And I do need to make a correction. I forgot that we zoomed into the Rhone with Pierre Gaillard, and they're 8 hours ahead. So we did record with Pierre Gaillard. So we will now move into that portion of our program. Wine number 3, we are tasting Syrah. We're in the Northern Rhone in a place called Saint-Joseph. And this is a clos, which means a walled-in vineyard. And I will let her pronounce it correctly because I often mess that up. So I will get right into the video. Next up at Stars of Wine and Stars of France, we're going to the Northern Rhone. And we're going to spend a moment now with the producer Pierre Gaillard. And on the Zoom, we have Elise Gaillard. She is part winemaker, part sales director, part team member, family member. And she is joining us right now from the south of France. Good morning, good evening, Elise. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I have had a great association with this particular wine that we're going to taste today for a while. It's been a really wonderful part of our Rhone program. And I love what happens in the Northern Rhone in Saint-Joseph with this wine. And I think it's a great wine to add to this program. Let me open up the slideshow and you can take us through a little bit about the family operation. How long have you guys been a family operation, in fact?
Oh, my father is the first generation. He started 40 years ago. He started in Claude Cuminaille.
And your father worked for some really important brands prior to starting his own effort, yes?
Yes, exactly. He started working for Gigal in Côte-Rôtie.
And so now how many hectares are you guys farming?
We own and farm 80 hectares on the Northern Rhone and in the Languedoc and Roussillon.
Oh, very good. And today we're talking about Saint-Joseph, which is in the Northern Rhone. Saint-Joseph in the pink, kind of, I guess this area right in here somewhere.
It's a long appellation. It's very extended from north to south. We are in the northern part of the appellation. That's why I'm showing you that part.
Just stop the video real quick and give you a little more familiarity. Down here in the Southern Rhone, famous wines like Chateauneuf de Pape, and we've got Gingondas, and let's see what else is down here. Tavel, Vaccarat. This is in the Southern Rhone. Down here in the town, Avignon is kind of the most famous part of the Rhone Valley. You have to go all the way up the river to the northern tip towards Lyon, and that's where we're at in here. Continue. Got it. Wow, this is a beautiful photo.
This is my hometown. That's Malval. That's hillsides.
Very, very interesting. How old is this place? It looks to be pretty historic.
Yes, it's a middle-age village. So most of the houses are like built in the 1400s.
Oh, so it's pretty new. Oh, it's gorgeous. So here's a look at the actual clos, the walled-in single vineyard.
Yes.
Cuminaille.
Cuminaille, yes. Difficult to pronounce.
Cuminaille. Saint-Joseph is the appellation, which requires that the wine be 100% Syrah.
Mm-hmm.
And these wines then get pressed and aged in both a large and small barrique.
We only use barriques, so 225 hectoliters, and we use 30% new oak on the aging. The rest will be 1 to 6 years old barrels.
And this looks like a pretty modern Shay that you guys have here. How long has this been in business?
This part was built in 2003.
Let's talk about the wine that we've got in our glass now. This is the Saint-Joseph single clos, 100% Syrah, 18 months in French oak, 30% of it new, totally destemmed, and everything's grown on hillsides with a lot of granite in the soils.
True.
And that's really what you're able to smell is the minerality of Saint-Joseph, that focus, that single instrument of Syrah kind of communicating the characteristics of this terroir, chocolate, nutmeg type of nose with berries. I will say that the wine is in a really wonderful place and has been since we first tasted it. When would your family think that this wine is like at its best point to drink?
I think we are entering the good time to enjoy the wine. Syrah has a closure time between 5 and 7 years old. So we are entering the new opening, which I think is very interesting. And with the Cuminai, we have this length and medium acidity, as you said, that will keep the wine and maintain the wine for a few more years. I think that we can still wait for 10 years old to drink the wine, and it's still very, very elegant and has a lot of flavors.
Is there a cuisine that you would suggest having with this particular wine?
In Lyon, we have many pork recipes that would fit the wine, but barbecue will also be interesting. Not strong, not too much spices. Duck is very good also. That could be interesting.
Yeah, I like that use of game with a wine like this as well. And it's just really fun and beautiful accent to a great meal. Like I said, this particular vintage potentially has presented itself in a very like, okay, we can actually start to drink this already, but it's really in a nice balance and in its 5th plus year now, really entering into this new phase of its development. And I don't have any hesitation of, keeping this in the cellar for a considerable period of time, but not afraid to drink it even at this very, very moment. And I think it represents one of the best value propositions in the Northern Rhone. And this wine in that set is at the top for me. I really, really enjoy this wine. I think its price value is incredible. We're looking at a wine that's below $40 a bottle that drinks amongst wines that are much higher than that. But I think quality, ounce for ounce, this wine is really an over-deliver operation here. And the reputation of your family continues to soar, and it's wonderful to be able to present this to our group today.
Thank you.
And your home looks beautiful.
You can come visit.
Yeah, is it possible that you receive guests?
We do, yes. Yeah.
Great. Well, we are intending to do that at some point. So I hope that would bring us together. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Hopefully we can meet there.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for making time for Stars of France. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the Rhone Valley.
Thank you.
Bye, Elise. Thank you. Wow. So we've started off with Sauvignon Blanc. We moved into Pinot Noir. Now we're in Syrah. And what I love about this particular bottling is that it really does have that singular, very focused, single spot, single grape variety. It's like a soloist, and it really shows off the winemaking. Pierre Gaillard is mentioned amongst the top winemakers in the Northern Rhone in lots of conversations amongst the wine geeks of the world. When we start talking about, oh, have you tried this and have you tried that? Gaillard also makes some co-roti, some very good co-roti. So this, and Crozet Hermitage as well. But this wine is one of my favorites from the portfolio. Dollar for dollar, it's really hard to beat. And I love where it's at. I really think the tasting notes we kind of covered there, that chocolate, I mean, it's pretty sexy, and that it's got this beautiful nutmeg. If I'm sure like right now you got the eggnog with a little nutmeg that you're going to shave on top of that. Just smell that the next time you get around some nutmeg, and go back and remember this nose, because you get that chocolate and nutmeg right off the top, and then that granite just really popping. So I just love this wine. I actually kind of crave this wine once in a while, and at its price point, it's a wine I can take out to dinner, and people are like, "Ooh, I really like this," and it always tastes much more expensive than it actually is. I see some nice comments there. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, 30% oak, and pretty aggressive with the use of new oak, but probably not a long time. Cool, Lori, you had some Indian food tonight. I'd like this with Indian food too. All right, well, thanks for the comments, everybody. I hope you're enjoying, and you're welcome to come and make some noise. It's time for William Davis, and we're going to spotlight William now. William has joined us on multiple occasions because he has one of the best jobs in the wine business. William is the educator for the portfolio known as Wilson Daniels. And Wilson Daniels imports some incredible wines, and we have many of them that we try to surround ourselves with. How are you doing tonight, William?
I am well. I am looking out my window in my office, and we're discovering the 55-degree temperature change. So we've got the big chill coming in, quite literally. So
You're in Colorado, right?
Correct. I'm in Denver. So yeah, it was in the 40s, low 50s about noon today, and we will be -2 as we get over midnight tonight, and it'll stay that way until Friday morning.
Yeah, all my Los Angeles friends that are on this Zoom tonight, we can all probably relate how cold it's been in the 50s this week.
Yeah, that is downright chilly. Again, it's so cold. I'm wearing a sweater and my hat indoors, and I've got my garage door open just to make sure that, you know, nothing freezes out there. But you know, we'll take it. It is winter. It's the winter solstice, and we're ready to go. 'Tis the season.
Cool. Well, we are going to taste a really amazing wine next in our lineup. We're going to taste a wine from the Loire Valley made from Cabernet Franc and other varieties.
Correct.
Yeah, this is called Cuvée Violette. It's from Clodonel,
yes.
Clodonel. And I was first introduced to this wine in a discussion about Domaine Leflaive, which I believe is the ownership, right?
Correct.
And Domaine Leflaive is a really important Burgundy house that also Wilson Daniels also represents. They also represent Domaine Romaniconti, and they represent Beyond de Santi, and they represent so many really marquee families in the wine world. And being able to taste something a little bit outside of like the most identifiable stuff you've ever seen. When you go into the Loire Valley and you start talking about Leflaive, a lot of people didn't realize that the Leflaive family has been investing in the Loire Valley.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, in order to understand what Clodonel is, you really have to understand what was going on in the late 1980s and early 1990s when Anne-Claude Leflaive took over for her father as well as her uncle. So that was Vincent and Joseph. Vincent was her father, Joseph was her uncle. And actually, if you even go back 100 years previously to, you know, the early 20th century, you think about Joseph Leflaive that kind of brought the domain into the kind of fame that we associate Domaine Leflaive with being kind of the leader of Pouligny and, you know, certain parts of Meursault. So when Anne-Claude, at the age of 26 years old, she took over the domain when both her uncle and her father passed away within 2 years of one another. They had already made it to their, you know, late 70s, early 80s. And of course, her cousin was Olivier. So you might see Olivier Leflaive on certain labels, you know, across the United States whenever you travel. And so the family and the board decided that she would be in charge of the domain, and Olivier, her older cousin, would have the right to access fruit from the domain, but to build his negociant business, which he did a very good job of. So if you do go to Pouligny, to the village of Pouligny, you might find yourself, well, which La Flève am I going to go to? Am I going to go to Olivier and go to the winery there, or am I going to actually get a visit at the domain? But when Anne-Claude took over in the 20s, there was a movement at that time that was started by, Nicolas Joly and by the Gang of Four in the 1950s, so that was Chauvet, and then, producers like Foillard in Beaujolais that were looking at organics and biodynamics. And so she partnered up with Claude and Lydia Bourguignon, who are the foremost soil scientists of the 20th and 21st century, at least how it relates to wine and vineyard development and production, and started a company. So she converted all of the vineyards in Pouligny and Meursault over to biodynamics in the early 1990s. So all of those wines are now, Demeter certified and biodynamic. So what she wanted to do was she met the couple that owned this property, which is right on the south side of the Loire River, just west of Chinon and Bourgoil, as well as a very important village called Chassé and Brézé. And that's right next to Saumur and Saumur-Champigny. So she decided with her husband that she was going to buy this property because, as you can see in the image of this vineyard, you notice that there aren't any electrical wires or anything that might actually interfere with the natural rhythms of the vineyards and the resulting wines. So she decided in 2008 to purchase the winery whole outright. The previous name of the winery, of all things, was Chateau de Troglodyte. And that's of course named for the troglodyte caves that you find from Chassé all the way across west as you head into Saumur and specifically into Angers. So we should go to probably the next slide. And this is where you can see, everything being done in accordance with biodynamic principles. And this tiny village called Ambieu Chateau, where there are maybe 25 or 30 people that live in this village. It's a small, sleepy hamlet, but the vineyards are what really intrigued her. Many of these vineyards, at least 60 years old, and for the wine that you're tasting, the Cabernet Sauvignon in the blend is 100 years old. So due to its lack of proximity to many of the other vineyards, even though you're on this beautiful south-facing slope with vineyards that are kind of pocketed, but they're within, 500 to 700 meters, so about half a kilometer to 3/4 of a kilometer away from one another. So Peter, the question was, how will age do to this wine? Very much in the same way that we would look at any of the great Cabernet Francs or wines from the Loire Valley from ripe vintages. They can age for 10, 15, 20, even 30 years, and we've seen that in examples of producers like Olga Raffot out of Chinon, Bernard Baudry, as well as some of the great producers, we think of in Saumur proper, producers like the Maine de Collier or Clos Rougeard, which might be the most famous and most highly allocated Cabernet Franc that you'll find in the region. And those vineyards are just 2 kilometers east of where Cloudenel is located. So you can see here that, that's, actually you see Claude Bourguignon and his team. So Lydia is outside of the picture. But you can see them digging trenches, doing soil analysis, really understanding what's going on in the mesoclimate, and then trying to introduce new vines in a way that won't interfere with the natural rhythm of nature, in short. So if we go to the next slide, These are those troglodyte caves where all of the wines are aged. So the wines are actually fermented across the street, and it's this narrow street that you might be able to get two minis, going in opposite directions across. So it's a very narrow street, and then they're brought into these troglodyte caves. I was there in the middle of July last year, when things had just started to open up post-COVID, and chance to spend some time there again. And if you look very carefully at some of the doorways, there are etchings that date from the 11th and 12th centuries. But of course, many of these caves had been carved, many of them by hand, thousands of years before.
Here's the technical data. We're looking at a wine that's 67% Cabernet Franc and 33% Cabernet Sauvignon. Vine age, older, for sure. And does this wine achieve, I know that I see on the back, there's Demeter certification on this wine.
Yes, absolutely. And this is something to be expected for, again, the wines of La Flève. So everything that comes from either the domain or the Esprit de La Flève, which is a new negociant project by the domain in Burgundy, as well as Cloudinel, are all going to follow those biodynamic principles and will all be Demeter certified. So correct. If there are any SO2 additions, now there are, I should mention, in their Chenin Blanc. However, in the red wines, it doesn't really require them. So when we talk about some stem inclusion, there is a little bit of stem inclusion in the Cabernet Franc, but the Cabernet Sauvignon is generally destemmed. And in a vintage like 2018, we talked about the ripeness in Burgundy. Well, that ripeness carried over into the Loire. And this is really marginal climate as you head further west toward the Atlantic. So, going from Pinot Noir, thinner skins, into, classic, more thicker skins, and you'll see, a full evolution of the concept of ripeness when we finally get into Bordeaux with the next wine. I think here you're going to find a little bit of the classic pyrazine and bell pepper notes that you'll always associate with Cabernet Franc, and certainly from cool climate Cabernet Sauvignon. But in a vintage, again, like 2018, you do get enough mid-palate weight due to the ripeness of the 2018 vintage.
Plus, you're talking about much higher level winemaking than your average Chinon. This is really going for the gusto. This is really high-end farming. This is really, with the expectations of the La Flève family for excellence and their high standards, you get something so much more here. There's something plush, dense, dark, deep, and that Cab Franc adds this like graphite and pencil shaving type of a characteristic, and then that Cabernet with that bell pepper kind of pyrazine character, kind of in an interesting way. They kind of like, I don't want to say clash in a bad way, but when you're blending together, you try to find a complementary balance, and there's this kind of really nice symmetry that is achieved here, where the wines really kind of make something 1 + 1 equals 3 here. It's just kind of something very special that's being achieved here, because you don't usually achieve this type of wow factor in the Loire with these varieties. This is truly special.
No, not at all. I mean, we are starting to see, due to climate change and global warming, we're starting to see more competent wines that are being made throughout the region. So it's an exciting place to be right now. But even still, maybe to mitigate some of the green tannins that you still might find in some vineyards that don't have the right exposure with enough sunlight and photosynthesis, We are still seeing a lot of Cabernet Franc and even some of the Cabernet Sauvignon and Grolot, which is another great variety that you find in Saumur and in Anjou. What they usually will do for the lower end wines is they'll see a little bit of carbonic maceration, the same fermentation that you would see in Beaujolais, for example. And we also see it being utilized more here in the New World, to mitigate and to kind of soften a lot of tannin and kind of the astringent notes and make wines a little bit more palatable at a younger age.
Well, it is a pretty breathtaking wine. I will say it also is in a wilder side of tonight's lineup. I don't know if your expectations were set until you put that wine up to your nose and you're like, whoa, because this is something else. And this is at the top of the food chain in the Loire Valley. This is I really do appreciate all of their wines. I was really taken by the Violette wine. We have had a recent run on this wine, and I apologize, but we're about to sell out of the Violette, and we will be moving into the new vintage, but we won't be able to get it until January. So what we have, it's just a couple of bottles. If you like this wine, if you like this style, and William, you said little to no additional sulfur, if any. Is that
correct?
Is that just the standard for the red, just no additional sulfur at bottling?
Yeah, and that's pretty much the standard for, how Sylvain, so he is the winemaker and was hired initially to and he's been the only winemaker, he was hired by Anne-Claude and by Anne-Claude's, now widower, because Anne-Claude unfortunately passed away in 2015. So she passed away at the age of 59 from cancer, unfortunately, but opted not to go through chemo, in keeping in accordance with biodynamics. If she's not going to put anything alien into her body, if she's not going to put it into the vineyards. So Christian, and now Anne-Claude and Christian's daughter, Claire, is running the winery along with Sylvain, which is really exciting. We're starting to see that second generation of the Lefebvres take over the estate.
Wow.
But I would say, this isn't like everything else that you've got, in terms of, from a stylistic standpoint. I don't want to use the, hey, it should go with food kind of, descriptor, because just because it's not driven by, fruit, there's a lot more earth and spice that are associated with this wine. It's not a cocktail wine, though. But when you think about, cured meats, and you think about, game, this is one of those classic pairing with those dishes, as well as steak au poivre. I think, that with black peppercorns and green peppercorns is a beautiful, beautiful pairing.
Yum, yum. Well, thank you, William. We appreciate your time, sir, and good luck with the weather in Colorado. I hope to hear you're doing okay after these extremes.
No, I might have a couple of bottles of Cloud and Nell. I've got some friends coming over to, welcome in the Christmas. So I think we're just going to have a 3-day just sit around and wait for Christmas Eve.
Peter, did we answer all your questions? Thank you for the great questions. And Anne is in the Lafleur family. There, there's a lot of developments happening in the Mancon with Premier Cru appellations now in the Mancon, and there's big growth there. And certainly, is there something else, William, that they're exploring?
There certainly is. I mean, the domain, at least under Brice. So Brice is, Anne-Claude's nephew. So he took over when Anne-Claude passed in 15. And so he's developed a negociant side. So now they work with fruit in Nuit Saint-Georges. They also work with fruit in Rouy. They work with fruit in Pommard. So they're making, and Corton. So they're making some red wines as well as white wines. And this was the first year that we released those to the US market. So it's a very, very busy and exciting time. California did receive a tiny allocation of those wines, all from, ironically, the 2018 vintage.
All right. Well, I'll have to look a little deeper, tap some shoulders, see if I can get some of that.
Yeah, I think there were quite literally,
I'm sure,
30 or 25 cases that came to the state.
Oh, well, we'll look forward to participating in the future. But thank you so much for being here, and it's a beautiful wine.
Well, thank you,
William. Thanks very much, and thanks to Wilson Daniels for all that you provide us. Really, I do appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
All right, we have two wines now from Bordeaux, and my friend Sebastian with Duclos is joining us to talk about these two final Bordeaux wines. Let's get the Pauillac number 5 in the glass. Hello, Sebastian.
Hey, Ian, how are you?
I'm well. Hope you're doing all right. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's not -2, so I'm doing all right.
Yeah, that is true. Sebastian's joining us from Los Angeles area, where he is the regional director for Duclos, and Duclos is kind of the new way that Bordeaux is coming to the marketplace in a very organized fashion, directly importing Bordeaux. The old world model was the Bordeaux producers would put it up for sale and whoever bought it could import it. And that's really wasn't very organized and didn't really protect brand Bordeaux very well. And so Duclos is really coming to the market with some great ideas. And this wine is kind of an evolution of some of that. They bring in the wines of Chateau Grand Puy-Lacoste. And so they partnered up and made a wine, a Pauillac wine, exclusively for Duclos. And that's what we have here. So if you search the world for this wine, you'll probably won't find very much of it out there. This is a small production. It's made by Grand Puy-Lacoste, but it's kind of a small niche wine. I was introduced to it. 2016 is the vintage, one of the greatest vintages of all time in Bordeaux. And about every 2 or 3 years, they're going to say something like that. But 2016 is undentably amazing. And, you know, you get into the Grand Puy-Lacoste wines, the top wine of the Chateau. What does that cost now, Sebastian? A great Grand Puy-Lacoste, 200 plus?
Yeah, on the great vintages, yes, like between, let's say, 120 and 250.
Yeah.
Depending on the vintage.
And we're looking at a wine here that's, you know, a fraction of that number, and gets to play in tonight's kind of approach to Bordeaux, because Pauillac really is like the heart of the Bordeaux top wines. How many? 3 of the, or is it 4 of the top? No, you got Margaux, you got Haut-Brion. So the rest of the top 5 wines are all in Pauillac, right?
Yeah, Latour,
Lafite,
and
Mouton. And so this is a really important spot in Bordeaux. I hope you're getting that wine in your glass. What do you want to say about the wine, Sebastian, about its location, etc.?
Yeah, so Grand Puy-Lacoste is in the center, in the middle of Pauillac. Very, very old house, like the first documents that were found on the location and the chateau or back from the 1500s, 16th century. And yeah, the estate was owned by the same family for over 400 years, and went from this great family to the Bory family. So Jean-Eugène Bory, who is pretty famous in Bordeaux, had many chateaux, and 2 are remaining in the family, Grand Puy-Lacoste in Pauillac, and Du Cru Beaucaillou in Saint-Julien. So you can see the chateau right here. So very classic Bordeaux chateau in terms of the building and the technical facilities. But the tradition at Grand Puy Lacoste has always been to produce a very consistent wine in quality and still, I would say, affordable compared to other Pauillac surrounding the estate, but like to remain a wine that could be drunk by a lot of consumers. So not going crazy into the speculative world of Bordeaux, and especially in Pauillac. Pauillac, as said Yann, is really the heart of Bordeaux. Many people, many consumers that cannot define what they like in Bordeaux, usually it's exactly defined as Pauillac, like a very masculine wine with like good structure, good tannins, but with a little bit of age, you have like this like perfect balance that comes out of the wine. And with that cuvée of Grand Puy Lacoste, it's a very small cuvée. It's between 8,000 and 10,000 bottles a year. So that's not much for an estate that's 90 hectares, so about like 230 acres, something like this. We like a very traditional way of selecting the grapes and growing the grapes. All the grapes on the estate are grown the same way, same techniques. Bordeaux has also really renewed the way they were making wine into getting like much cleaner, much more close to nature and to the terroir. And we're not like at the level of the Loire Valley and the previous vineyard for sure, but it's really getting close to it, and especially on vintages like 2016 that are like warm vintages, perfect weather, perfect conditions. This is exactly when you don't have to add anything in the winemaking process or in the growing process, like barely any sulfites, no chemicals at all. Like it's super clean when the weather is great. Bordeaux is a very, very humid region. Some vintages can be more challenging than others, and this is where you'll have a lot of diseases, mushrooms, everything. In this vintage, it's really, as Yann said, one of the very top vintages of Bordeaux. You will hear that pretty often with climate change. But 16 is a little revolution for Bordeaux. It's probably the first vintage where producers got really rid of the way of making wine influenced by Robert Parker. Bordeaux is back to like trying to have a brighter fruit and way more freshness. Mm-hmm. They try to get really rid of the oaky, caramelly, toasty
tannins.
Sometimes they were trying to get in like the last 20 years. 16 is really the first vintage that's going to show that evolution. And so I'm sure you can taste it right now. This cuvée shows very well how in like 6 years, you can have a super elegant, balanced and textbook Pauillac. You can drink it with food, you can drink it at the aperitif, and it's really not something that usually you do with Bordeaux, but this one is so fresh and so balanced now that it's super easy to, it's super versatile. So in like more technical details, 80% of Cabernet Sauvignon and 20% of Merlot, I mean 79 and 21. Like very small production. As said Yann, if you're trying to find this wine on Wine Searcher or anywhere, you're never going to find it. We really keep it for our good partners. And we're very happy with the partnership we have with Yann. So to get this this structure on this fruit, but not overwhelm the wine with too much tannins and oak. So basically you'll have 12 months in oak barrels, French oak barrels, 30% new oak only. But it's the extraction. It's a very slow extraction, cold maceration. So you'll try to get a little bit less tannins, but more fruit. And when it's gentle like this is the result you're gonna have in the bottle. Instead of having like a rock star that's gonna age for 3 years and be great to drink after a while, this is, you have the same thing, but just more approachable. And that's what's great with this wine. You really get the Pauillac thing without being having to age the wine for a long time. So that's an introduction of the style of the Chateau and of Pauillac in general.
Absolutely. And this just is the essence of that, being able to drink it now.
Yeah.
It's something that I think really does show off. You know, I spent a while on that slide, on the winemaking slide, showing the picture, just how, you know, there's not much added to wine in the winemaking process here. We got, you know, grapes from the great vineyard that come in. They are selected in the vineyard, then selected as clusters. They go through this very simple destemmer. They go down and they're selected again like caviar coming out of there. And so these machines are small, they're nimble. They used to be millions of dollars to be able to buy this stuff. And now it's better and it's smaller and it's more you know, easier to use. And so the quality level of these wines have jumped so much. And so that's why we're able to taste something that's at this price point from such a prestigious estate. And it's just delicious. I think it's very classic in that it's Pauillac and it shows off that terroir typicity, that Bordeaux typicity. But I think it also shows off the future of Bordeaux, because more wines are going to come to the market like this, because most of the world doesn't want to wait 20 years to drink wine. They want to buy it and maybe have it for a few years, but they don't want to be able to have to hesitate to open this. 16 is a vintage that you want to own. It's a great statement. 10 years, 15 years, I think this wine will be absolutely spectacular, but you can have it now and it's drinking great. Any questions from our group before we move to our final wine? I got some, there might be some comments there. I think William got everybody's most of everybody's comments. But I hope you guys enjoy the Pauillac. I really think that from the whole kind of theme of the program tonight, dollar for dollar, these wines are really solid, over deliver type of wines. Sometimes you look a little deeper and you find something like the La Flave wine that's kind of exciting and new and goes into that natural winemaking world. Sometimes we go to like the Sancerre and they're doing some new techniques and seeing some new things here. In Bordeaux, they're doing some new techniques and they've really been elevating the farming, taking a more holistic approach and really getting in touch with that property. And they are able to do it because of the dedication that they have. And they're doubling back to make wines like this more accessible, not only in the price point category, but also in the drinkability category.
Yeah, and you will see it with like 17, 18, 19, 20, even like if 18 and 20 and 22 actually are going to be the warmest vintages of Bordeaux ever. They are probably the most approachable wine that Bordeaux has ever produced. So there's really a big contrast between global warming temperature and actually the approachability of the wine. So a few questions. The production amount on this wine is between 8,000 and 10,000 bottles of vintage. So it's between like 600 and 800 cases a year. So that's nothing. And that's exclusive from Duclos, the Négociant. And so that's why it's brought to the States with like not a lot of quantity. And so we try to really pay attention to who we work with for this wine.
I have a pretty big holding on this wine and ability to get more. We'll run out of the wine from the Loire Valley. I have a good stock on the Sancerre, a good stock on the Burgundy, a good stock on the Rhone. But the Pauillac, I mean, who doesn't want to own 2016 Pauillac at this price point going into the future? It's just to me, it's an absolute no-brainer. And people come to me and they're looking for a wine at this price point. I think it's going to be a good, safe bet.
Just to clarify the blend, last question, 80% of Cabernet Sauvignon, 20% of Merlot. The Cab Franc is grown on the estate, but it's usually used for the Grand Vin in some vintages, not all the time. But there's no Cab Franc in this one.
There you go. So the estate has Cab Franc, and you'll find it in the first wine. But this wine is a different selection. Perfect. Well, we're going to now move, Sebastian, I have you. And when we buy Bordeaux, we buy a lot of our Bordeaux from Duclos, the importer, and Sebastian. And they have a expansive portfolio of all the top wines throughout Bordeaux. But we go to Sauternes next. So we turn to you again, Sebastian, to talk about Sauternes. And this is a really fascinating wine from southern Bordeaux. And the wines here get what's known as the noble rot, botrytis. And they botrytize Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon, and you can all of a sudden get this really amazing nectar from this area. Tell us a little bit about Rio Sec.
So Rio Sec is one of the top Sauternes. You have probably 4 or 5 estates, including Yquem, which is the most famous estate of Sauternes. But like around Sauternes, around Yquem, you'll have like 3-4 properties that are going to be delivering like exceptional wines, and Rio Sec is one of them. Very, very like they pay a lot of attention to the vineyard, and that's the key thing about Sauternes. In Sauternes, except Yquem, you can barely find anyone that's making money. Just so you know, all the estates are losing money. This is not something that is really rewarding in terms of economics. But so that's why all the famous chateaus have been acquired by groups, wine groups. And so Rio Sec has been acquired in 1984 by Baron Lafite, the Baron Rothschild group. So basically Lafite Rothschild, and invested a ton of money in the late 80s to start with renewing the buildings, like digging on the ground, creating more share cellars to make sure that the wine will age even longer in barrels, and at the property to deliver bottles that would have like just a perfect maturity, and that was one of the biggest things. They finished all these investments in the early 2000s, and after that, we're really focused on the terroir and the vines. So it took a very long time for them to make sure that they would transition from Sauternes that would be really heavy, really dense, really focus on the density of the fruit and the aromas, to develop wines like this one that would have a great acidity, like more minerality, if I could say, but like just easy to drink. And that's the spirit of this wine. you have the aromas, you have the kind of like the fatty texture, the creamy texture, but fresh fruit and a lot of acidity that makes the experience, I would say, much more easy to pair with food at least. This is a wine that's going to be super approachable and much more easy to pair than the first label. So Rio Sec and Carme de Rio Sec especially is driven by approachability and acidity. And on the 17, that is one of the greatest vintage of the 20 last years in Sauternes. You would really get like this acidity driven nectar, and that's the very important thing. The acidity will make it pair with much more things than a wine that will be a little bit more fat, that you will really drink with foie gras, with like dessert. This one, you can really have fun with it. And talking about an aperitif wine, this is pretty much like what I think would be a great pairing with actually a lot of Loire Valley food. My mother is from the Loire Valley, and we really pair those wines with a lot of Rion, a lot of charcuterie that are like kind of fried, and like I'm sure with like chicken wings, fried chicken, or things like this, this will pair very well. Whatever fried or poultry with caramelized skin, you'll have fun with this wine. This is a pairing that we never think about, but this is actually how we taste sweet wines in Bordeaux, with like just a grilled chicken, rotisserie chicken. So
very interesting point that you brought up when you said that none of these producers in Sauternes are making money, and you look at all of the top brands and they're all owned by LVMH and portfolios like the Rothschilds and
Rothschild, AXA for Swirl. I mean, like only,
big, hedge
only
funds.
basically, yeah. So
and they're
like the independent producers of Sauternes are making money with their dry white, but never with the sweet wine.
And you got to think about how the yields are so small. Picking these shriveled botrytis berries and crushing them, getting the honey out of them, and then
to give a good comparison, like usually we say that with vine you produce 1 bottle of red wine. To produce sweet wine, you need 7 vines to produce 1 bottle. So it's, let's say, 7 times less effective in terms of production than a regular white or red wine. So
a little goes a long way. So we did give everyone about a half of a 2-ounce pour, because it's a half bottle that we pull this out of. So that is the tasting portion, which is about an ounce and a quarter for each person, and a little goes a long way with Sauternes. You don't need to have a 4-ounce glass of Sauternes to satisfy, but it is I think I read something about the production in half bottle now exceeds the production in 750.
Yeah,
is that true?
Yeah, it's very true. And because I mean, like, it's just more easy to buy two half bottles than a bottle. Then you can usually drink a little bit of that wine for the beginning of the meal, the end of the meal, but you can keep those wines for a very long time in your fridge because of the sugar level. It's not going to age very quickly. It's not going to get oxidized. 3 weeks with a cork in the fridge, the wine is still going to be perfect at the end.
Yes.
So
And
it's
I am a warrior for dessert wine because I really believe that there's trends and then there's counter trends. And I think dessert wine has been a counter trend for a very long time, and it's got to be near the bottom at some point. And what we're going to be left with is this small collection of the very best that we're able to survive. And Sauternes is just so important. And this is a really important house inside of Sauternes. And if you go to Merchant of Wine, I have 20 Burgundies, I have 50 Bordeaux's, I have, but I'm going to continue to acquire different dessert wines of the world that I feel are really important. I have probably 5 different Sauternes, but I have about 100 different dessert wines, from Madeira to Tokai to the basket wines of dried wines of Italy, to the basket wines of South Africa, ice wines of Canada. There's so many different dessert wines that are really cool, and I want to be able to have those. They age beautifully. And another good example is Portugal. They all went broke in Portugal making port wine. So the whole dessert wine category is pretty depressed in that direction. But with all that's happening in Bordeaux, these type of wines are starting to emerge. Dry wines are starting to emerge from Sauternes as well. And these wines don't need to be 25 years old before you can start to enjoy them. The 17 vintage here is really fun. It's got that fun, fresh, bright perfume. It's got almost a little bit of a grapefruit and honey presentation, some wonderful floral elements, things that as they age, they start to go towards brown sugar, molasses, things like that. But in the fresh state, they're just so energized and energetic and refreshing and cleansing. And like you said, it's really fun to have as an aperitif, and to welcome things, gets things settled down. It's fun to have it with different cuisine and to explore. So I recommend having a bottle of Sauternes in the refrigerator. You're going to have guests for the holidays. And if you open up a bottle of dessert wine around the table, everything slows down and the conversation all of a sudden livens up and warms up. And that conversation goes from being a half hour to being 3 hours. And it's just, it's really a conversation enhancer. That's what I pair dessert wine with sitting around the table and shooting the shit for hours. That's what is great about dessert wine.
And one more thing I would like to say is that having a dessert wine that is young and having a Sauternes that is 20 years old or 30 years old, these are 2 completely different experiences. These are 2 different wines. The one that you're tasting right now, as Jan said, is very refreshing. It's on the white flower, jasmine, citrus, like nice, bright, refreshing aromas. If you wait like 20 or 30 years on those kind of wines with like this dark brown color, it is a completely different experience. So I really recommend you not to wait that long to try dessert wines. It's really acidity driven and refreshing, as when you wait for 30 years, it is more difficult to pair, and you really get another sense of sweet wine, like more on the liquor, more on the like candied evolution of the fruit, and the aromas are completely different. And so please, when you get like a case of sweet wine, what's interesting as well is to see the evolution, but don't wait. It's very, like, I remember the best experience I had with sweet wine in my life was when I was tasting Yquem from the barrel, and it was not bottled yet. And for me, it was the best thing ever. And it's true with every Sauternes. When you get it, not even just after fermentation, not even in the barrel, it's crazy. You feel like it's a fruit juice with a little bit of alcohol that you put in a brick and you just have a straw and you're just like, you want to walk outside and drink this thing, and it doesn't feel like it's wine and alcohol. It just feels like it's like fruit juice. So like, don't wait, enjoy it when it's young as well, because it's worth it.
Amen. Thank you, Sebastian. We got some nice comments in here. You know, dessert wine too. I think the problem for dessert wine, to be honest and frank, is that people think that you have to pair a dessert wine with something. I think dessert wine is dessert, and I think it is. It's also the after party, and it's also like you just came home from work and you want to change the direction of your evening. You had a tough day, pop a bottle of dessert wine and have a little sip and just get a whole new outlook on life. I just think it really does reward that type of thing. Sure, foie gras this is the official wine of foie gras. But in a world where foie gras and dessert are becoming less important, I would hate to hang the category's dependency on those two products. And I really think that that's what they're looking for, is trying to say, hey, let's not just think about this wine for dessert. Let's think about it for life. What is it? What other things in life can we do with dessert wine and do with Sauterne, especially? So
blue cheese works very, very well, just with the comment. And please, as a French person, cheese is paired with white or sweet wine, never red.
I do a class called Wine, Cheese, and Chocolate, where I pair the reds with chocolate and the whites with the cheese. And there's a couple of hard cheeses that I like with red too. But
Yeah. But like in general, fresh cheese, goat cheese,
cheese, the soft
these
stuff.
things are
Champagne, Sauterne.
Champagne, everything white, whatever.
Yeah. Well, yes, Comte. Epoisse, for sure. Yeah, it's Epoisse and Sauterne, spectacular. Love talking wine with everybody. Thank you guys for your participation, your questions. I hope you enjoyed the wine lineup tonight. We love putting these things together. My team, as you know, works very hard to do this, and we will continue. I want to tell you about two fun things that we have happening right now. One is, as all of you are on the Zoom, you may want to help us join our Zoom into Wine membership. Membership is $100, and I'm not sure why there is a $95 version there, but that was 2022. 2023 is $100, and you are going to get your money back immediately, because we are going to give you a $100 bottle of Cabernet as a gift, included with your purchase at $100. One of our stars of Cabernet producers. So that will be an immediate payback. And then you get invited automatically. You'll get the Zoom link to watch any of the Zooms that we do for the next year. Every time we send out a Zoom on Wednesdays, there's a discount code. So you get like 10% off any wine on the site. It's not just the Zoom wines that we're tasting. So you're always going to get a special access to having a discount code. And so that's our Zoom into Wine member benefit. If you want to taste with us, you don't even have to buy the tasting kit. You can just watch the Zoom with us. You can join us live, grab a glass of wine, and just join us on Zoom every Wednesday night. Or you can just go to the archive, which is available right at the bottom of the website here, Zoom into Wine Archive. Every Zoom we've ever done is now archived here, and you can watch them back to 2021, 22. So join us for become a member. It's $100, and you'll get it right back with that bottle of wine. Now, our Zoom into Wine calendar, we're continuing to create great stuff. If you liked tonight's French lineup, I want to recommend that you check out next week's French lineup. We're doing a taste of the best. We're going from Chateau Gruyère which is a very special Condrieu, Viognier, Northern Rhone, very rare, $500+ a bottle. Then we're going to have Cheval Blanc Blanc, which is a new offering. I got this as well from Sebastian, from Cheval Blanc. Then we'll taste the Domaine Le Fleuve Puigny Montrachet. And then we'll taste some Jamais Côte Rôtie. And then we'll finish up with Cheval Blanc, the from the house. All the wines are listed here. You can see how expensive the lineup is. It is a pricier tasting, but a heck of a deal. Getting to taste all 5 of these legends. It's a rare opportunity. So if you're around next Wednesday, we have 3 spots left, and we'll get you these wines. Now, not done yet. One more commercial. January, we get kicked off with a really fun Resolve to Drink Better in 2023 and a very fun lineup on January 4th. Then on January 11th, Barolo and white truffles. You could do the tasting Barolo only. You don't have to buy the $400 white truffle. That's the price of white truffles this year. But there is a black truffle option that's quite affordable, or you just skip the truffle and just do the tasting of the Barolo. 5 top Barolos will be tasted. Here's the really exciting news for tonight. January 18th, we have the Stars of Santa Barbara. Well, we're now calling our Zoom events Zoom into Wine Presents. So, because our Stars name is now only going to be for our live tastings, but the Zoom into Wine Presents concept will continue. And we have lined up some incredible producers. I know I'm going to say Stars 10 times on our first event, but this is our Santa Barbara lineup for Zoom into Wine Presents. Liquid Farm, Jeff Nelson, owner, winemaker, is going to be joining us. Phenomenal Estate Donica Vineyards, very new, hot, cool. Ernst Storm, winemaker, joining us. All these guys are going to be live, by the way. Matt Dees, Mail Road, just incredible press came out this week about Mail Road wines. He's going to be joining us. D'Alfonso Curran will be joining us. Paul Lotto will be joining us. And Kamins to Dream, this wonderful couple, is going to be joining us, talking Santa Rita Hills Syrah. It's an incredible lineup of really cool, I would say, top brands to know about in Santa Barbara. And that tasting kit is on sale now. It is a pricier kit than normal. These are not inexpensive wines. The price does get higher as the event gets closer. You can see the matrix down here. There's a 2-kit deal for $90. And that's our Santa Barbara lineup on the 18th. We hope you guys will join us for that. And check out all of the Zooms. Every Wednesday, we will Zoom in 23. And if we're not live on Zoom, we will have something else special for the Zoom members. So thank you guys for joining us, and hope you guys enjoyed. Bye, everybody. I'm going to say goodnight. Enjoy your time. Enjoy the holidays, and we'll see you soon.